This tree is called Tree of Heaven. It lines the rear perimeter of my backyard, and you may have seen it in your yard too. Initially, I loved that its long leafy branches served as a visual barrier to whatever would lay on the other side of the tree line behind my house, and it even has attractive flowers. But then I started seeing baby trees of heaven sprouting up in my lawn and even in my flower bed. I tried to pull these weeds, but they easily broke off at the bottom, leaving the root intact. Because of their extensive root system, which are actually suckers from a nearby tree, it's impossible to pull it up by the root. The Tree of Heaven is an invasive species from China. The roots of Tree of Heaven put out a poison that kills all vegetation around it. You can see it's starting to kill the pine tree closest to it. It's turning yellow, but the ones farther away from it are still green, at least for now. The Tree of Heaven is fast growing, up to 6 feet in a year, and it reproduces very efficiently. A single adult tree can dispense up to 300,000 seeds. Plus, its seeds have special wings that make it especially efficient at spreading long distances in the wind or in water. So if you don't have a Tree of Heaven on your property today, if your neighbors do, it's a real threat to you. And get this, the Tree of Heaven can survive in any kind of soil, even in the most inhospitable places, and it withstands drought. If you ever get up close to the tree, you might notice it gives off a bad smell. Sometimes it's referred to as a stink tree. Plus, the Tree of Heaven is home to 2 invasive insects, the spotted lanternfly, which is known to devastate all kinds of crops, and the brown stink bug. Guess it makes sense that a stink tree would attract a stink bug. Knowing all this, the best course of action is to eradicate these trees. However, I learned they are almost impossible to kill. Just chopping them down or mowing down the twigs that spring up in the grass doesn't work. Nor does burning them down or spraying a defoliant on them. That's because when the tree is cut or burned or sprayed, the roots go into overdrive, and those suckers quickly start even more trees. Surely there must be an answer. After consulting a variety of sources, including the Alabama State Agricultural Department and Madison County Extension Center, I found there are 3 main techniques for killing these trees, which I'll explain here. But whichever technique you choose, do it in late summer or early fall, not in the spring or early summer. That's because you must kill the roots. And in the fall, the flow of sap in the trees is downwards towards the roots. In spring or summer, it's upwards towards the branches. Option 1 is basal bark treatment, or bark painting. This technique only works for trees less than 6 inches in diameter. Mix up a herbicide called triclopyr ester in a 20% solution with bark oil, which enables the herbicide to penetrate the bark. You'll have to go to a farmer's co-op or pesticide distributor to get these products, as they're not sold in stores. Then, as shown here, paint the bottom 12 to 18 inches of bark all around the tree. Some people put a dye or colorant in the spray so they can clearly see what's been treated. I guess that's why it's been called bark painting. Do not try to substitute using glyphosate or triclopyramine instead of triclopyr ester, because those are water-soluble and won't penetrate the bark. Option 2 is stump treatment. Cut the tree down to a stump a few inches above ground. Within 5 minutes, treat the stump with triclopyramine. You can find this in stores sold under the name Brush Begone, Brush Killer, or Garland, but you need to buy the concentrate, not the ready-to-use stuff, because you'll need to apply the concentrate at full strength to the stump. I've also heard that 45% glyphosate will work, but not the ready-to-use stuff they sell under the brand name Roundup. Get the concentrate. Timing is critical. You must treat the stump within 5 minutes of the cut. That's because Tree of Heaven can automatically wall off the cut inside of 15 minutes, rendering the treatment useless and sending the roots into overdrive to quickly make more trees. When covering the stump with herbicide, pay special attention to treat the edges near the bark, the inner bark, all around the perimeter. Frankly, I think this is the most difficult option because it is difficult to get the timing right. It may take more than 15 minutes to chop down the tree. The best option, I think, is to poison the tree from within, also called the hack and squirt method. It can be used on trees of any size. For this, you'll need full-strength glyphosate concentrate, 45%. Here's how. Using an axe, hatchet, or machete, make a series of cuts in the trunk, being sure you cut into the inner bark of the tree. Go around the entire circumference of the tree, making these cuts at about the same height, spacing each cut about an inch or less apart. If the tree has multiple trunks, you'll need to do this on each trunk. Within 5 minutes of making each cut, apply the herbicide into the cut. For timing reasons, you may want to do this as you go, rather than making all the cuts, then doing all the spraying. Remember, the tree's defenses will wall off the cuts inside of 15 minutes, so you must hack and squirt quickly. The reason this technique works is that the tree does the work of poisoning itself. It carries the herbicide down to the roots, effectively killing the tree in place and ensuring the roots won't continue sprouting new trees. It may take from 2 to 6 months for the tree to die completely down to the roots, so don't cut it down after treatment for 6 months. After then, you can cut it down if you wish, and just to be safe, maybe pour a little more herbicide on the stump at that time, as I previously described. Whichever method you use, keep in mind that by late summer or fall, the tree you kill will have already dispersed its seeds. So, next season, when you see new trees springing up, you'll need to do this treatment a second time. Persistence is key. After 2 seasons, though, you might be okay for a while. That is, unless your neighbors didn't treat their trees, and those seeds have reached your property, which is actually very likely. I encourage communities and homeowners associations to band together to help eradicate these invasive trees. Together, we can make it happen. Individually, it will be a perpetual game of whack-a-mole. You know, I have to admire an organism that has developed so many strategies for survival. But from now on, I think I'll refer to Tree of Heaven as the tree from hell. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that glyphosate is cancerous, and both glyphosate and triclopyr can cause extensive health issues and birth defects. When using these herbicides, be sure you are wearing full protective gear and follow label instructions.